Just fixing the lighting. Hi. I'll wait just a minute and then we will get started. Yes, I know I'm live. Good morning. Hello, good morning. Hi, John. How are you? Hi, Wes. Good morning. What's cooking in the crazy world today? Oh, it's very crazy. It's very, very crazy. This will be interesting. This, oh, cool. We got some people on. This Jussie Smollett thing is getting very interesting. Okay, hello everyone. How are you? I'll wait till about the 2-minute mark and then get started in about 30 seconds. Stop it. It always is. You know what's going to be so funny though about this whole trial? What's going to be hilarious about this trial is I believe the brothers in question, the one that allegedly, we have to say allegedly here. Hi, Troy. The brothers that allegedly got paid to do this like fake attack. I was really surprised when Dr. Oz announced his candidacy for the Pennsylvania Senate. Yeah, but you know what? Dr. Oz, so he's running as a Republican, but I think he's a rhino. I think he's kind of a Republican hack because if you've watched his show, he seems super progressive in my opinion. He's also really close with Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey is basically the one that got him started and backed him and gave him his platform originally. So I don't know about all that. That would be an interesting thing to look into, is this whole Dr. Oz running thing. Also, I believe Dr. Oz has sold some scummy things. I'm not sure, but again, it's just something I would like to look into. So I don't know about all that. I was surprised that he was running as a Republican. Mainstream media Republicans are scary. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. So what's really funny about hey, Special K, yeah, let's see. I thought, so I'm going to read you this article. So the brothers in question are being cross-examined today in the Jussie Smollett trial. So that will be really interesting. But I was thinking to myself, it would be so funny if we found out this whole time that Jussie was telling the truth and these brothers were lying to try to get ahead. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. I think we clearly know what happened here. But all right, so the way that this is going to go, I will give you this update. This is, oh, hi, Kelly. I haven't seen you in a while. So glad you're here. Good morning. So I'll give you an update on this Jussie trial. Oh my gosh, it just, okay. Give you an update on that. We'll talk about, what did I have next in the headline? I think I have Alec Baldwin next. So Alec Baldwin is going to be doing an interview, and I think it's airing, watch tomorrow on ABC. It's airing tonight, right? Yeah, that was, today's December 2nd. So it's airing tonight, and I have the promo for you. So we'll go into that. I also want to talk about Bradley Cooper, because something happened to Bradley Cooper, and who's a big time actor. You could call him, I guess, an A-list actor. And something happened in his city of New York, Happy Hanukkah, that is waking him up to the insidious and dangerous progressive policies in his city. So we'll talk about that. And then I have a little bit of update of Waukesha, and we can talk about Chris Cuomo for a second after, but it looks like some people think that he might be back actually in a few months, so that'll be really interesting. But first, let's look into this Jussie Smollett thing. This is, okay. So it says, Jussie Smollett trial witness says actor staged attack wanted to be fake beat up. So the brothers in question, that's who's alleging this. But this just, as I read this to you, this is a culture that I know so well because I know actors in Hollywood, I know how they work, and I know how desperate people are to get ahead. And that's sort of what this is about, and that's sort of how this happened. So it says, the man Jussie Smollett allegedly paid to help him stage a hate crime took the stand in the actor's criminal trial Wednesday, describing how he took part in the hoax because he thought the Empire star could help push his own acting career. So I don't know how to say their names, but these are the two brothers that, oh, hi, Steven, how are you? These are the two brothers that are in question that were allegedly paid to stage this attack against Jussie. So one of the brothers told jurors in Chicago's criminal court on day 3 of the trial that Smollett dictated nearly every aspect of the alleged fake attack, from the racial and homophobic slurs him and his brother were told to use, down to who should throw the punches. He explained that he wanted me to fake beat him up. I agreed to do it because, most importantly, I felt indebted to him, Jussie. He also got me a stand-in role on Empire, and I also believed he could help me further my acting career. I know this so well, so many people, and I don't even know if these brothers are actual actors. But Hollywood is riddled with people that want to get ahead. And the thing about Hollywood is there's only a few parts at the top. And if you are going to get ahead, you have to do the work. You have to be talented, like raw, natural talent. And you have to put it in. And sometimes it takes a really long time. But so many people, they just think, oh, if someone just notices me, I'll be rich and famous right away. Or if this one person can help me, I'll be rich and famous right away. And yes, networking has to do with that. In every industry, networking is a really big deal. But so many people try to do stuff like this. And it's like, even people that do YouTube and stuff like that, like, it takes a lot of work to be able to do it, and a lot of hard work. But this is the Hollywood mindset. So many people, they think if they go to Hollywood, if they can get some shortcuts, then they'll be famous. I found guilty. Jussie should be made to pay back all the costs for this state. I agree. If he's found guilty, I agree that he should be made to pay back all of that money that went into all of the people that worked on this case, and all of the I hope it ruins his acting career. Well, yeah, well, so this was twofold. The brothers did it apparently to help their acting career, and Jussie did it to help further his own acting career. But that's not how you do it. And the thing about Jussie is he's I would call him like a D-list celebrity, but he's actually a decent actor, and he's a really good singer. So he has the talent, but I don't know. And for me, if you're living in Hollywood and you're a regular on a show, you've won the game. You might not be an A-list movie star, but you've won the game. You're able to live full-time off your acting. You get to be on a decent show, but it's just people want more than that. They want to be famous. It's greed. I need more. So the brothers said, they are at the center of this sensational, long-awaited trial as the prosecution's star witnesses. About 2 weeks after Smollett told police he was the victim of a vicious hate crime on the frigid night in January 2019, the brothers were arrested but confessed the actor paid them $3,500 to stage the attack. Smollett's team vigorously denies the allegation and claims the men intended to attack him, potentially because they're homophobic. Smollett is facing 6 counts of felony disorderly conduct for lying to police, and if convicted, faces up to 3 years in jail. One of the brothers, who also worked on the set of Empire, testified that Smollett and him met through a mutual friend in 2017, and over the next few years and a half became extremely close as they spent time together smoking weed, visiting strip clubs, and having sleepovers at the star's Streeterville high-rise. Okay, so Jussie is claiming that they did this attack possibly because they're homophobic, yet they had sleepovers. Okay. I would call him my brother, one of the brothers said, adding Smollett would ask him to procure weed, cocaine, and Molly for him. Welcome to Hollywood. Around 9 a.m. on January 25th, 2019, one of the brothers said he received a curious text message from Smollett asking for his help on the low and if he was available to meet up face-to-face to discuss. Later that afternoon, he picked up one of the brothers, and the brothers sat front seat in the actor's Mercedes-Benz. The infamous plan was hatched, and Smollett was both the star and the director. First, Smollett asked one of the brothers if he could trust him, and then lamented the studio's response to a disturbing piece of hate mail he claimed to have received that showed a sick figure hanging on the words of "you." Okay, so it appears that one of the ways that Smollett kind of enticed the brother to go along with this was saying that he got this piece of hate mail and that was racist and homophobic, and the studio didn't do enough to help him. So he's saying, I need to make a bigger deal out of this. The studio didn't do enough to help me. But here's the thing, whenever you're in the public eye, you get a lot of hate stuff, and it's wrong, it's not okay. But I don't even have a big platform, and I get all kinds of nasty comments and hate things all the time. No matter who you are, if you are in the public eye, if you do things publicly, that's what you get. I just choose not to talk about it. I say delete, 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 delete. That's what I do. End of story, because that unfortunately is what you get. And maybe the studio didn't make a big deal out of it because they are used to this, and it's better just to not make a big deal out of it and to move forward, because you get stuff like this all the time. Justice for Jussie. He talked about how the studio is not taking the mail seriously, the hate mail he'd received earlier. I receive hate mail. I was confused, he said. I looked puzzled, and then he explained that he wanted me to fake beat him up. So he was using this as leverage to help entice one of the brothers to be able to, allegedly, to be able to do this attack. Smollett asked one of the brothers if he could help and then explained his vision for the stunt. He first told the brothers specific words he wanted them to use. Empire, stuff I can't say, and then MAGA, and then gave blow-by-blow instructions. He wanted me to punch him, and then he wanted me to pull the punch so I didn't hurt him, and then he wanted me to tussle him and throw him to the ground and give him a bruise. Then he wanted me to look like he was fighting back. So I was supposed to give him a chance to fight back and then eventually throw him to the ground. Thank you so much, Kelly. She said, I missed you. I've been traveling during the holidays. Well, thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that. I hope you had amazing travels. The actor told the brothers not to bring their phones in case they dropped them and lost them, and ordered them not to use rideshare service to prevent any record of their location. Should news of the attack get picked up by the press, Smollett directed the brother to send a phony condolence letter, which he later did when the alleged hate crime inevitably became front page news. Within 10 minutes, the plans were laid out and dress rehearsal was set for 2 days later. Well, at least he's diligent in his planning. From across the room, Smollett, wearing a light blue shirt and burgundy tie, furrowed his brow as he watched the other brother testify and described the alleged dry run. From across the room, Smollett, wearing a dark suit, light blue shirt, and oh, I already said that. On Sunday, January 27th, the day before the attack was set to take place, Smollett picked up the two brothers and brought them to his neighborhood, where he pointed the exact location he wanted the alleged hoax to go down. Asked by Special Prosecutor Dan Webb why he wanted the attack captured, he testified he wanted to use the camera footage for media. Sorry, I have a frog in my throat. When the plan was finally carried out around 2 a.m. on January 29, 2019, the camera Smollett hoped would capture the attack was pointed in another direction, But just about everything else went according to plan. The brothers delivered their lines, roughed Smollett up, and fled the area only to be arrested a little over 2 weeks later. Okay, so it appears that these guys wanted to get ahead. Smollett kind of exploited them and their want to get ahead and his position as maybe being able to do that for them. And, this is, again, it would be so funny if we found out that Smollett was telling the truth and maybe these brothers planned something because they were disgruntled. I don't know. I don't think that's what happened. It's usually, I think we all know what happened in this situation, but this is the creation of victim culture. So being a victim nowadays, he didn't look too roughed up. No, he really didn't at all. And he probably didn't want to be. You can't do it too, don't mess up my face. I'm an actor. This is what victim culture creates. Now there is status in being a victim. There's clout in being a victim, and these stories get picked up. This is why you have so many, and it's really sad because there are real attacks or there are real hate crimes that happen, but you have these instances where people are faking these hate crimes to get clout or to move ahead, and this is the end result of victimization. Even, I'll take you to Waukesha for just a second because this is mind-blowing. So the perpetrator in the Waukesha incident is now saying that he's being demonized and dehumanized. The 39-year-old male accused of ramming a red Ford SUV into a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin last month complained in an interview on Wednesday about the way that he is being treated after allegedly killing 6 and injuring dozens more. The suspect, who we're not naming due to company policy regarding not identifying. So the reason they're not naming him is because they don't want to glorify people in these situations. So I respect that. The suspect, who I'm reading this from the Daily Wire, who the Daily Wire is not naming due to company policy regarding not identifying alleged mass murderers, complained to Fox News that he was being dehumanized and demonized. The report said that the suspect was soft-spoken and appeared calm, lucid, and took time to answer each question. Wow. The report said that the suspect was okay, I already told you that. The report also added, not even his mother has dropped by, he said. Earlier in the day, she released a statement on behalf of the family decrying Wisconsin's criminal justice. Wow, so this was his mother. Gosh, I have a frog in my throat. Sorry, guys. So this was from his mother. This is like, okay. Not even his mother has dropped by, he said. Earlier in the day, she released a statement on behalf of the family decrying Wisconsin's criminal justice system for failing her son. A longtime felon with a 50-page rap sheet detailing domestic violence, firearms, drugs, and other convictions in Wisconsin, according to documents obtained by Fox News Digital. The suspect is also a registered offender in Nevada and served time in Georgia for attacking his S. The suspect was released on $1,000 bail. So even his own mother is calling out the criminal justice system for allowing him to be released on $1,000 bail. And yes, a career criminal. And that's how, if I'm not a mother, but if I had kids, and my mom is the same way, if you commit a crime, you do the time. If you do something, I'm not bailing you out. You can sit in jail for a little while and think about what you did. But again, you guys, so now he's saying that he feels dehumanized. He feels demonized. But I'm pretty sure you dehumanized those individuals when you plowed your car through a crowd, not having any respect for human life. So, but again, it's that in his mind, he's like, if I can play I'm the victim too. I'm the victim. We make victims out of criminals. For instance, you had Kamala Harris go visit Jacob Blake in Wisconsin, in Kenosha, the same state, disregarding the female that called the cops on him, the kids, that were in the back of his car that he wasn't supposed to have. He was the victim in all of this. We made the one that resisted arrest, the one that had a knife when police officers were attempting to arrest him, and Kamala Harris went to go visit him. I actually read, oh, I wish I could find it. I read a Babylon Bee headline that said that the president of the United States was going to be visiting the dehumanized Wisconsin driver. So there was a Babylon Bee that actually the president was going to go visit him. But look at what Kamala Harris did. Kamala Harris has a history of prosecuting black males and keeping them in custody for months after months. You're actually right. So I don't know if you all remember. Yes, Kamala Harris has a history of over-incarcerating people, especially black males, and keeping them incarcerated for longer than what they have to do. And she's being accused of doing that for cheap labor. But this is typical of Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris will go whatever way is going to get her ahead. So she used to be in favor of over-incarcerating people. Now she's in favor of, now she's gone the total opposite end of the spectrum and is on the side of actual criminals, not just people that are being over-incarcerated. So Kamala Harris will do whatever she thinks is going to get her ahead in her political career. And she goes back and forth. And actually, sorry I didn't see the name on that comment, but that is where Kamala Harris's political career should have ended when Kamala Harris was thinking about Michael just said the Babylon Bee seems to deal more in truth than any other news media. Some of my favorite Twitter threads are taking articles from The Onion or the Babylon Bee, and then it's like they come true a few months later and putting like the fake article next, or putting the fake headline next to the real headline. And they seem to be a predictor of the future as well. They must have psychics working there or something. But this should have ended Kamala Harris's political career. When Kamala Harris was thinking about running for president, during the Democratic primary debates ahead of the 2020 election, before we knew who the runner for the Democratic Party was going to be, Kamala Harris was debating Tulsi Gabbard, and Tulsi Gabbard brought that up. She brought up the over-incarceration and keeping people incarcerated for longer than what they were supposed to do, for longer than what they should have been held for cheap labor. And she, in my opinion, completely obliterated Kamala Harris. And after that, that's when we saw that Kamala Harris's approval rating was like 5 or 6%. It was abysmal. And then she dropped out of the race and then became the vice president nominee after that. Kamala Harris also has incarcerated single mothers. Wow. Okay, let's talk about Alec Baldwin. Okay, so Alec Baldwin is going to be doing an interview, which I'm very, very surprised that he's doing. Can we just get rid of the whole garbage administration? I call it the Brandon administration. So Alec Baldwin is surprisingly doing an interview, which I do not like Alec Baldwin. He is, in my opinion, a lot of people are responsible. This was clearly, like, what happened on the set was clearly negligence on a lot of different levels. It was clearly reckless behavior and everything like that. But he's now doing an interview. Hi from Sweden. He's now going to be doing an interview on ABC where, surprisingly, they're actually asking him very hard-hitting questions. And he's saying now that the trigger wasn't pulled. Sorry, I'm late. My dad came over. Oh, hi, Glenn. Nice to see you. Kelly said, yeah, I wish we could just flush the toilet. Alec Baldwin claims he didn't pull the trigger, so why is nobody charging the gun for shooting all by itself? Yeah, and apparently the type of gun that was used, I've shot this type of gun, and you have to pull the hammer back before it even shoots. So I have heard, I'm not an expert on guns, but I have heard before that in a very rare case, a trigger can go off. But again, this is a machine and someone has to control the machine for it to go off. Now, he says the trigger wasn't pulled, but he didn't explain how any of this happened. And they didn't show this in the trailer for this. What I think happened, or what I think he's going to either attempt to say, or maybe, I don't know. I think he's going to say that he cross-pulled it somehow, and then something happened and it went off. That's what I think he's going to try to say. But what I was surprised in, hopefully, oh, you're talking to each other. What I was surprised what's happening, so some of the questions that they asked in the interview were, how is it pulled? And that was his answer for that. Another question was, how did a loaded gun get on set? Another question they asked is, why didn't you check the gun? Which I'm surprised they asked. They also brought up the criticism of George Clooney, and they said, so I don't know if you remember, but George Clooney criticized him by saying, every time I have used a prop gun on set, as soon as they hand it to me, they show me, they open it up and show me the blank inside. I open it up myself, and then I also show the person who is in the scene with me and everyone else, I open it up and show them before we even think about doing anything. So they brought up that double action or single action. That's a good question. I don't know. So they brought that criticism up, and of course they didn't show us the answer because they want us to watch the special. It's suspenseful. They brought that question up. They also brought up there wasn't supposed to be any shooting in the scene that you were rehearsing for. Oh, it's single. Okay. So they also weren't supposed to be shooting in the scene that you were rehearsing for. So I'm surprised that he's doing this interview. I'm curious as to what his answers are. So two things can be true at once. This is clearly a PR stunt by him. This is clearly, I mean, if you looked at the promo for this entire thing, it's clearly the way that they're lighting it. It's very dramatic. He's crying. Keep in mind, he's an actor. All of those things. But also, could it be smart? I don't know. If you're telling the truth, then you should go out there and get the truth out there and scream it from the mountaintops. So we'll see what's happening with this. But here, I'll read you just a little bit of the transcript from this. So Alec Baldwin, he's speaking of Helena Hutchins. She's the woman that lost her life. And he's saying she was someone who was loved by everyone and worked with and liked by everyone, and everyone admired her. And even now, I find it hard to believe that. It doesn't seem real to me. And it's George Stephanopoulos who is doing this interview. He says, you haven't said much in public since the tragic accident. Why speak out now? I think a big question you have to ask yourself 1,000 times. How could this have happened? You described it as a 1 in a trillion shot and the gun was in your hand. How do you come to terms with that? It wasn't in the script. It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled. And Baldwin said, well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger. And Stephanopoulos said, so you didn't pull the trigger? And he said, no. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull the trigger at them, ever. And Stephanopoulos said, what do you think happened? How did a real bullet get to that scene? And Baldwin said, I have no idea. Someone put a live bullet in a gun, a bullet that wasn't even supposed to be on the property. And Stephanopoulos said, how do you respond to actors like George Clooney who say that every time they were handed a gun, they checked it themselves? Your emotions are so clearly, so right there on the surface. You felt shock, you felt anger, you felt sadness. Do you feel guilt? You said that you're not a victim, but is this the worst thing that's ever happened to you? And Baldwin says, yes, yeah, because I think back and I think what I could have done. So this is really interesting. This is why there's no charges yet against Baldwin. I don't know if there will be, but if there are, that's a very, very tricky question. Because if you say, do you feel guilt? That could be used against you. All of this, what he's doing in this interview could be used against him if charges, in fact, come to him, especially the guilt part. Because if you admit any guilt, you are possibly admitting your wrongdoing. This isn't like just a big tornado came and ravaged the set and he was scrambling trying to help people and he's like, I feel so guilty that I couldn't do more, that I couldn't help, because there's definitely negligence involved in this whole situation. Sarah, Baldwin's lawyers told him he will be liable. Right now he's denying he's pulling the trigger. Yeah, he is. That's why I'm interested in what he's going to say, or if they're just going to not really explain that and leave it alone, because how did the trigger go off? So I don't know if they're just going to kind of slide past that question and just kind of let the explanation go in the wind and then later deal with that down the line. But I'm surprised he's speaking out, and I know that we don't like Alec Baldwin. Oh, what? No, that's not what I said. What did you say? I know that we don't like Alec Baldwin, but at least he is coming out and speaking. We've talked about the whole Travis Scott situation, and no one in that situation has said anything. No one involved Travis Scott has said nothing. No one has said anything, and that's probably because he's being sued. But if you did nothing wrong, oh please, he pulled the trigger. Alec is lying. Well, and again, they never said in this entire promo how the trigger, okay, if you didn't pull it, then how did it go off? It was in your hand. So, interesting. Oh, and then he asked the question, do you feel guilt? I believe he asked somewhere, firing the weapon wasn't in that scene according to the script supervisor. Yes, and they asked that in this interview. So this interview is tonight. I'll either watch it or I'll watch the rerun. That's why I'm surprised they asked that question, because that's a pretty direct question. And this is clearly, there was negligence in this, so it wasn't just a freak accident. But I don't know, if you've ever been in a car accident, you never admit guilt. Like they always tell you that. You never say, I'm sorry, or you're not supposed to. Because as soon as you say, I'm sorry, you're admitting guilt. Nearly every modern firearm will only go off when the trigger is pulled way back in the day. Some guns had a reputation for not being drop safe. It was an older gun. And as a result, it became standard practice to have the hammer over empty chamber to avoid accidental discharge when dropped. Oh, that's interesting. So that's what I fired off, was a gun that had the hammer. I will say, I do remember reading that what they used on the set was an older gun. So, just saying. All right, moving along. I wanted to talk about Bradley Cooper, because something really interesting happened, and this is something I've been interested as well. I just got this really good book. It's called San Francisco, Why Progressives Ruin Cities. So I've been watching what's been happening in my old neighborhood of West Hollywood, the Beverly Hills area, different parts of Los Angeles, and it is becoming so incredibly crime-ridden. The amount of robberies that happen on the street. I've even had several shootings that have happened on the streets that I used to go and walk down every single day. Hi, Joel. It's just getting out of control. And we recently talked about Seth Rogen, how he criticized a guy named Casey Neistat. So Casey Neistat is this huge YouTuber, and he was visiting LA, California. So Casey Neistat was visiting LA and had his car broken into and some things stolen. And he just mentioned on his Twitter, like, wow, this just happened to me. I feel violated. This California is becoming a shithole, is basically what he said. And Seth Rogen criticized him by being like, man, my car has gotten broken into 15 times. It's just a part of living in a city. Basically, like, get over it. Totally disregarding how bad the crime is getting. Just a complete, like, elitist mindset. Someone that's totally out of touch. And yesterday we talked about the CEO of Netflix. His mother-in-law was actually potty mouth. I know I did. I was a potty mouth right there. So the CEO of Netflix, his wife's mom, or is it mother-in-law? Something along that nature. She was the wife of a really, really famous producer in Hollywood. Well, her home in Beverly Hills got broken into, and she was shot, and apparently she died from her wounds. And this just happened within the past few days. So this is just, oh, and I even saw, like, in my old neighborhood, there was a 23-year-old at 7 p.m. at night, a 23-year-old girl, and that's coming from a stoner. A 23-year-old girl in my neighborhood at 7:30 p.m. at night they still don't know what happened. She was shot just on the street, Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood. So the crime is getting really bad. And Bradley Cooper, something happened to him recently. A-list actor, I'm sure you all know him. And I just want to tell you what he said because I found it really, really interesting. Why would Seth Rogen care? He helped enable James Franco. You know what's funny about James Franco? I actually have friends that went to his acting school. But nothing happened. Nothing illegal happened. So, no, I had a friend that went to the James Franco acting school, and he did, she was of age. He did ask her to go somewhere with her, like to a movie or to something, and she declined because she was engaged. I mean, that's not illegal. That's creepy, but it's not illegal or anything. But I do remember before all of this coming out, her and I having a conversation about James Franco. And according to her, this is all alleged, this is not news, but according to her, all of the girls in his acting class sort of had a similar look, almost like he had a type. I don't know if that's true. Okay, that's pure gossip, so don't take that as truth, but it's just so funny how, Sarah, did you go to acting school? I did go to acting school. It's just so funny how we had that conversation, and then a year or two later, all this stuff comes out about James Franco. I did go to acting school. I went to a lot of acting schools. I went to improv schools. I went to the Groundlings. I went to Second City. I went to typecasting for style. Yeah. I went to the Groundlings. I went to Second City. I went to UCB. I had regular acting classes. I went to clown school. I did voiceover classes. I did singing lessons. I did everything. I liked it. But I stopped going in Hollywood. I didn't like the acting classes there. They seemed a little cultish. And again, like what I was saying earlier, you have all these actors in the acting classes that every day it would be people complaining about their managers or not being able to find an agent or not getting enough auditions. Did you see Kamala Harris in clown school? I did not. Everyone's complaining about getting auditions and stuff like that, but nobody wanted to put the work in. Hollywood is creepy. Wow, your resume must be pretty impressive. I've had lots and lots of training and lots of jobs, just not jobs that anyone's ever heard of. But now understanding Hollywood a little bit more, I'm actually kind of glad about that. I avoided many things. Okay, so Bradley Cooper was recently held up at knife point. So he was on the subway going to pick up his daughter from school and was held up at knife point. He said, it was pretty insane. I realized I had gotten way too comfortable in the city. My guard was down. He also said, so he said the knife was about 2.5 to 3 inches long. The actor said he had headphones on while he was listening to music the entire time, but couldn't remember what songs. I don't know why that's important. He said, I just started running. I jumped over the turnstile, hid, and he ended up getting away. But he said this is really interesting. So this happened to Bradley Cooper on the subway. He was held up at knife point. And what he said was, I used to be able to walk around New York City all the time with my headphones on. This was pre-pandemic. I was on the subway 11:45 to pick his daughter up from downtown from her Russian school. Interesting. And I got held up at knife point. So, this is very true. This is exactly, you could have taken the words out of my mouth. This is one of the reasons why I decided to get out of West Hollywood for a little while. I saw this coming. By the way, he's in New York City. I don't know if I made that clear. Yeah, I heard about that. He probably won't sound so liberal after being held at knife point. Exactly. And this is exactly what happened in West Hollywood. I used to walk and I had that same feeling like, wow, I used to be so comfortable. I used to have my guard down so much. I used to walk, and that's why I moved to the neighborhood I moved to so that I could walk around. I used to walk 2 miles a day with my headphones on. I would walk so far away from my home and just I was carefree, totally had my guard down, but you cannot do that anymore at all. And he's realizing that the hard way. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Like, for instance, in California, he's in New York City, but in California, we had several things happen at the same time. For years, we've had the emptying out of mental health institutions, which a part of that is good, but there are some people that need help. They need medication. They need to be in an institution. They need to be evaluated. Hello, Mr. Old School. So you have two things going on in California. You have the homeless population, which there's a lot of mental health, there's a lot of drug use. And then you have our criminal justice system. But you had your star with me. I would just never walk 2 miles at all. You're better than me. I loved it. It was what I don't go to the gym, but I like to walk and I like getting like exercise that way. So you have those two things going on at the same time. And what you happened around the pandemic, not only did our homeless population get a lot worse, and you're seeing a lot of crime because of that. And that crime is because a lot of people are on drugs, and a lot of them are in drug-induced psychosis, or they already have mental health, and then they're using drugs on top of that. And let me tell you something. I used to work in a psychiatric hospital. I worked in one for kids. I also interned at a psychiatric hospital for adults. And when people talk about mental health and people being unstable when they're mentally ill, that is in no way trying to say that these are bad people or these are awful people, but these are just people that need help. The same with addiction. And you cannot have people like this that are in this type of state just running around. I worked with a man who was a really nice man. He offed his wife one day because he was in a state of psychosis. He was in a delusion. He was paranoid, schizophrenic, and was in a delusion and thought that his wife was a robot trying to kill him. So, but he was a nice man. I worked with him every single day. But when he went into a delusion, it doesn't matter who you are in front of him. He thinks what he thinks in his mind. And so you have these people walking around Los Angeles that are not only mentally ill, they're completely drugged out. And a lot of times those will be total random attacks. And it's not saying that these are awful, terrible people. It's just saying that they need help. And to have people roaming around like this, where you have just regular people walking by every day and you hear of these just random attacks. So you have that happening in Los Angeles. And then you also have, when the pandemic happened, you had Gavin Newsom release 76,000 criminals. You had the demonization of our police officers. You had defund the police, which defunded, I know Bradley lives in New York, but it's similar things have happened. You have our police department was defunded by $150 million. So that happened. And then you had George Gascon, who was elected as our DA. So you had him implement zero cash bail. You had him give a list of directives. There was like 30 or something directives of crimes that they were that their DA's office, their prosecutors were no longer allowed to prosecute. So you have all of this happening all at the same time, and now you have an explosion, and I talked about this yesterday, I don't know why, but especially in the past few weeks, you just have an explosion of crime. Not to mention, we had the George Floyd riots, which I think that in and of itself emboldened a lot of people to start doing a lot of these smash and grab stuff like that. You also had, you were only going to be charged if you steal up to $950. And I'm using California right now. I know that Bradley lives in New York, but similar things are happening in both places. They're being run by similar politics. And Sarah, all of those things they did are deliberate. They want to cause more crime and instability to further their goals. That could be it, you know, because whenever you have a crisis, for instance, I always use the climate as an example. No one's saying that the climate isn't changing. No one's saying that we shouldn't be conscious about the environment, but they will use that, create fear to say, look, you need my policies. Look, you need me to give you you need to pay more in taxes because the earth's going to end in 10 years. I use AOC as an example all the time. So she has the infamous Green New Deal, yet one of her staffers actually admitted the Green New Deal was never about the environment at first. It was about reimagining the economy to go to a more socialist economy, which makes sense because AOC's degree from Boston University is in economics. It has nothing to do with climate. But they'll use that to instoke fear, and they'll use chaos, and they'll use these things to make you feel unsafe, to make you feel unstable, so that you need them to fix it. Who is letting them out? Well, it's Gavin Newsom let 76,000 people out of prison, and they used COVID as a reason to do this because they didn't want to overcrowd their prisons to have an outbreak. But I will say, I've never heard of an outbreak in the prisons. Back in the day, USSR and the communists used the same methods to keep their power. That could be it. No, because that could be it because a lot of these policies that they try to implement, they're not very popular among regular folk. They're really not. Most people like their independence. They just want to have the American dream. They want low taxes. They want to own a home. They want to have kids. They want to be left alone. They want to have a job, and that's it. They don't want, so, I mean, that's a possibility. And there is a theory among the Biden presidency, because they know that Biden is a one-term president, they're going ahead and just pushing all of these policies that are deeply unpopular because they know that he's not going to be up for re-election again. Plus the politicians going against the voters' wishes. Yeah, that's what they're doing right now. And I think that's why they have that attitude, because you really do see it within the Biden presidency. I doubt Biden will finish his term. We'll see. It'll be Kamala Harris if he doesn't. It's buffering? I don't know why it's buffering. It's not buffering on my end. I'm sorry. End Roe versus Wade. Okay, that's interesting. So this is debatable. I would like to know your thoughts. So this whole Roe versus Wade thing is coming up. I personally believe, okay, personal feelings about abortion aside, put personal feelings about abortion aside. If that were to be overturned, tell me if I would love to hear your thoughts on this. My fear is if they completely overturn that, they are going to really, really activate the Democratic base. And we see what happens when they activate the Democratic base. Right now, you have Democrats that are waking up. You have a lot of people saying, I don't like what Biden is doing. I don't like what this administration is doing. I looked at his numbers this morning. It was like a 36% approval rating. I think it might actually be lower than that. But if they were to overturn Roe versus Wade, you are going to activate the Democratic Party like crazy. Yes, and they cheat. That's just my opinion. And right now, Republicans are set to sweep in 2022. And if things go the way that they are right now, they're going to sweep in 2024. So if that happens, my fear is that they're going to be activated like they've never been activated before. It would return choice to the states. Okay, I agree with that, and I think that's good, but a lot of people aren't very smart. The far leftist side of them, at the very least, yes. So yeah, that's totally my fear about of this happening right now. They could just say the new law in Mississippi is legal without overturning Roe versus Wade. I think that would be a better course of action. Yes, overturn Roe versus Wade, let the states decide. I agree with that. My fear is that most people don't think in nuance, especially people that are extremely liberal. They don't think in nuance. They think all or nothing, and to them, they're going to see overturn Roe versus Wade. Oh my God, and freak out. But I agree. I think it should be up to the states. I think states decide. I also, here's what really bothers me about a lot of, if it goes to the Supreme Court, I am sure it would even allow for state choice. That's the objective moral reasoning behind it. Left only cares about power any means necessary. Radicals are relentless. I was thinking the same thing this morning, Sarah. Yeah. So you have to do what's right, but you also have to be smart at the same time. And I think that's something you have to chip away at, because people aren't going to get it right now. But I will say, what really bothers me, what's really disturbing, is I'm watching a lot of these protests. I don't know if you guys saw the footage. It was 3 girls, and they were liberals. I'll tell you, they think with they think with emotions, and they don't look at the nuance in things. They don't look at the benefits of certain things. I was watching footage of the protests that were happening outside of the Supreme Court, and I don't know if you guys saw, it was the 3 girls, and they had up a big sign, and they were like, "We're taking," there's something on my shirt. I think I have lint on my shirt. They were like, "We're taking the abortion pills," and ha ha, yay, abortions. And they took the pills and they took water. Man, I don't think that's the hill you want to die on. I don't know if that's really what you want to be doing in protesting. And what really bothers me is that we don't talk about personal responsibility for females. And I think this actually damages females. It's like this wave of radical feminism has really done a lot of damage to women, because we used to want to embolden women. We used to want to make women responsible for themselves, but now we're infantizing women, and we're telling them, and what the far left on the abortion argument does, I feel like our conversation should be like, women need to be responsible for their bodies and responsible for their choices. And if you are a woman and you are ever assaulted in a way, the first thing that you need to do is go and get the kit at the hospital and get a plan B. That is the first thing that you should do that day. And that is what should be told to women. We need to be telling women what to do. And you need to do that for 2 different reasons. 1, to protect your body. Well, 1, to have evidence, and 2, to protect your body, so that you're not ever in a position where you need to get that procedure in the first place. And teaching women how to know their bodies and be responsible for their bodies, and not teaching them how to be babies that are just victims all the time. Treat the women with respect who can think for themselves. And teach women that you don't want to look to the government to take care of you. Because that's one argument I hear all the time. Well, what about in those cases where assault happens? Well, if an attack happens, and you guys know what I'm talking about, if that happens, there are steps that you take. One, to be able to catch the MF or whoever attacked you and to be able to have evidence, and two, to protect your body. And I just think it's so, like, I always think back of, you know, Michelle Williams. She's the actress. I can't remember if it was a Golden Globe or an Oscar. I think it was an Oscar. So Michelle Williams, is that her name? Michelle Williams? Exactly. There's generations of people that live off the government. Well, you know, back in the day, so I told you that I used to work for hospitals. So what I did was I interned at a psychiatric hospital for adults, and I interned at a few other facilities. And then I worked at and you can actually look this up, it's really interesting. I worked at an acute care psychiatric hospital for children and adolescents. And this hospital, it used to be called the Desjardins Center back in the day. But the old Desjardins Center, the old building, it had asbestos. It was just a dilapidated building. So that building was actually abandoned. And when they moved to the new building, they didn't want to be associated with Dr. Desjardins. That's who that school was named after anymore. So they started calling it's the Commonwealth Center for Children and Adolescents now. Dr. Desjardins was infamous for practicing eugenics. So a lot of people don't realize this. Eugenics was practiced in the U.S. up until the 70s. And Dr. Desjardins practiced it. Margaret Sanger, she's the founder of Planned Parenthood. She's spoken about eugenics a lot. So what they would do at the children's hospital back in the day, way before I started working there, no one that works there is associated with this in any way, shape, or form. But they would euthanize kids as soon as they came in to basically make sure that they couldn't have kids. So a lot of people that are so pro this and pro that, you should understand the history about a lot of this stuff. Dr. Desjardins actually was quoted as saying, and by the way, like back in the day, the H-man, the German H-man, actually looked to the U.S. and what was happening in the U.S. and sort of learned a few things from the U.S. as far as eugenics and stuff like that. There's a really interesting history about this. Dr. Desjardins was quoted as saying back in the day that Hitler is beating us at our own game. So, sterilize, surely not euthanize. Oh, sterilize, yeah, that's what I meant, sorry. But that's what they did to the kids because they wanted, I don't know, but they did that. And a lot of people had a lot of different motives for doing that. And, you know, Margaret Sanger was along with that group. And so I think that people should really understand, you know, really understand the history of everything before, I don't know. That's so, I'm going to say that too. And it was practiced here up until the 70s. That was a good joke. There was a joke. Hitler's favorite game was Minecraft. Haha. Murderers have hobbies too. And Margaret Sanger has said some questionable things, I think. And that's the thing, too. I will say, I believe this. I do not like Planned Parenthood. I've never liked them. I just don't think they're a good facility, given the history or what they do now. I just personally don't like them. I would never advise any woman to go to Planned Parenthood for any sort of procedure. And this is what also bothers me. People that think that those that want to defund Planned Parenthood from government funding also think that they're very, like, they just want to completely end abortion. That's not totally it. I don't think Planned Parenthood should be government funded. I don't think they're a good place. There are many nonprofit places that women can go to, low-income women, and get free procedures. There are tons of places. So I just don't like Planned Parenthood at all. And that's another way that they will try to conflate the argument. They say if you don't like Planned Parenthood, then you're not pro-choice or pro this. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of shady things that are happening with Planned Parenthood. I don't like their history. I just don't like them at all, and I don't think they have to be government funded. And when you say, oh, you don't want them to be government funded, you don't care about poor women getting services, there are tons of nonprofits that will give free services, tons of clinics that I think are way better than Planned Parenthood, and many different areas that give women free services if you are low income. And all you have to do is Google it. Defund Planned Parenthood, right? But it's really easy to find. I actually had a friend and I helped find her a place. It took us 5 minutes of Googling. Oh, but by the way, if you wanted to end this off, we were just talking about Chris Cuomo yesterday, and Brian Stelter, Potato Man, is already saying that he thinks Chris Cuomo is going to be back in a few months. I would not be surprised. Because look at everything else he's gotten away with. I would not be surprised if he's back in a few months and people just totally forgot about it. So this is exactly what Brian Stelter said. He said, I think the bottom line is that Cuomo is on the bench for now. We're heading into holiday season. I think it's possible he will be on the bench for several weeks. It's possible he'll be back in January. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah. He said, you have media critics condemning Chris, calling on CNN to take action. You have colleagues here at CNN who are mad at Chris Cuomo for putting the network in a tough spot and wanted to see action. You also have a lot of viewers who though love Chris Cuomo and are now ticked off that he is off the air and want to see him back. So unfortunately, I think that's probably true. I think you still have a lot of people that love him because he gives them their talking points. He has, he probably has a lot of people that really dislike, Trump and Republicans and everything else that he talks about, and he parrots back what they want to hear. So you probably do have a lot of people that are still fans of Chris Cuomo because he says what they want to hear and they want him back on the air. And then you have a lot of people that want action taken so they can say, look, we took the action, we suspended him, and now he's back on air. Unfortunately, that might be what happens, but we'll see. Remember when he stated that his COVID break wasn't... Oh, yeah. Gut-filled gives him hell. Well, it's interesting, too, because when that whole scandal happened, when he had the virus and he was busted for breaking quarantine, which they never acknowledged on his show, during that time, he gave an interview, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was on Sirius Radio. He actually gave an interview where he admitted that he was so tired of the things that he has to talk about on air, and he's so tired of being divisive, and he didn't want to do it anymore. But then he retracted everything that he said, and he was like, no, that's not true. Actually, I do like it. And you never heard anything else about that again. But it was almost like he had a little bit of he just had a break, and not a break as in I'm taking a break, but it was almost like he had a little break and he spoke the truth and then went back to his regular self, if you were to ask my opinion on that situation. I wonder if I can pull it up. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not here anymore. Oh, here it is. It says, Chris Cuomo rants about hating his job. Was that on Sirius? Yeah, it was on Sirius XM radio. Yeah, he talked about hating the fact that he has to be so divisive and saying things sometimes that he doesn't really want to say. But then it was very strange. He had this rant on air. Let me find exactly what he said. He had this rant on air and then totally like took back everything he said. It was very strange. Okay, so he said, I don't want to spend, this is back in April of 2020. He said, I don't want to spend my time doing things that I don't think that are valuable. Well, I don't like what I do professionally. I've decided. I don't value indulging irrationally and hyperpartisanship. Okay, do you hear this? I'm going to read it again. He said on Sirius XM back in April, I don't want to spend my time doing things that I don't think are valuable enough. Well, I don't like what I do professionally. I've decided. I don't value indulging irrationally in hyperpartisanship. I don't think it's worth my time. And then later on, when he was questioned about it, he totally backtracked and he said, oh, I didn't really mean what I said. Interesting. Here's the thing, like, if you're kind of partisan, that's okay, because anyone that has an opinion, I guess it could be viewed as partisan. But when you're saying things that you actually don't believe, when you're saying things that you actually don't know, or that you actually don't think are true, and when you know you're being a propagandist and posing as a news anchor, yeah, that has to wear at your soul a little bit from time to time. Even the worst of the worst person, that has to, you always have moments where you have that little look in the mirror and you're like, okay, this isn't good. All right, well, I think that's everything I have for you right now. Thank you all for joining. That was pretty fun. Frito doesn't have any thoughts that are his own. He just says what they tell him to. Yes. Bye, Sarah. Have a good day. Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody. I will see you later. Take care. Thank you for joining. Sarah, what about the defense bill that Republicans are blocking? I'll look into that for next time. I'm writing that down, actually. Sarah, you have over 10,000 followers now. Don't forget us little people. I would never. Oh, my goodness. Silly. Trigonometry is a great English YouTube channel. Oh, yeah. I just discovered them recently. They're a really good channel. Thanks, Sarah. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a really good day, and I'll see you later. Okay, bye.
My pleasure.
I wasn't talking to you.